See, this is why I tell people not to get their fucking pants in a bunch every time about master modes or flight changes. And now with master modes, and there's 50% of people who are upset. There's 50% of people that like, I'd say it's a 50-50 split with these flight changes. Probably more like 40-60, 40 who don't have a problem with it and 60% that do. I don't know. That's just my vibe on it. But like, I have been with this project for 10 years, and I can tell you right now, I have seen the flight model change 6 times. Okay. So when people get upset about these recent flight changes, it's all going to change. It's going to continually change because it is the most important mechanic in this game to make this game a successful game. The flight experience is the number one fucking important things besides dynamic server meshing, besides, you know, all the actual tech that's going to make us have this experience is like through the roof. The flight experience is right at the top of the list. Okay. So people that are upset about master modes, calm it down just a touch. Realize this is a work in progress. Zoom out. Look at the macro. They're going to continually change it until people are generally happy with the flight model. So here we go. Star Citizen has big flight changes incoming again. Okay. Let's see what Board Gamer's on about. I haven't heard about this. This is pretty new to me.
Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. Today I wanted to talk about Star Citizen's flight model. Some pretty big changes are coming to that again. CIG talked about them in September and November of last year, but also I wanted to talk more about X4 Foundations, another space game working with John Pritchett. So John Pritchett is working with Egosoft on a big flight model update for X4 Foundations. In fact, it's currently available in their public beta, and that test is currently running of, I think it's version 7.5 of their game. And it is a big change to the flight model of X4 Foundations and is pretty awesome. John Pritchett was one of the primary contributors to the Star Citizen flight model and IFCS, the Intelligent Flight Computer Systems, from the early days of Star Citizen until he left CIG in mid-2018, I believe, because he was unable to relocate. He'd been a contractor or working remotely, and CIG had brought the flight systems in-house. There was a whole hoo-ha at the time, as well as a couple of...
That is the truest statement I've ever seen in this chat right now, Figment. How you doing, buddy? Happy New Year to you. Figment says the only constant in SC is the changing of SC.
People pretending to be him had posted fake Glassdoor reviews, pretended that they had a terrible experience at CIG. This was in a bid to make CIG look awful for potentially getting rid of John or whatever for some reason. What I will say is a lot of people would say that John's flight model work was the best and that CIG should have continued down that route of more physically based, potentially more complicated flight. He was pretty interactive with the community and well liked, at least by me. Star Citizen's flight model and IFCS systems have had some interesting history and many iterations, as well as whole reworks. He took the not particularly stable model from 3.0, although it had a lot of cool stuff in it, and made it significantly better in 3.1, and then again going ESP in the right track for 3.2. However, CIG have since stripped that back, and we have even more changes coming to their current master modes system and flight model in the near future. CIG have chosen to go down a more simplified gamified route compared to...
And you know, I keep coming across this nagging thought in my head, and maybe I'm just speculating here, but to me it almost seems like they could diverge. They could go 2 paths here. They could actually make the simplified gaming version that is master modes right now only for Squadron 42. And they could actually do a much more complicated model in the MMO and the persistent universe. I keep coming to this kind of revelation, like that might happen. I might call me crazy, but that might also be one of the probabilities that happens out there. Maybe not a decent probability, but it's still out there.
To the previous iterations, from what I can tell. And it's something that they could do more easily at an MMO scale, while also having the feel of you being very powerful. It's not arcadey flight, but it's a bit more arcadey than they had originally had intended. Anyway, I do...
And doesn't that make sense? I mean, Squadron 42 is supposed to have mass appeal. It's a solo game. They're trying to get as many sales as they can so they can continue the funding and take that big chunk that they need a return on investment. Think about how much they've spent on Squadron 42. So they need the mass appeal. They need it They need it more like an arcade kind of vibe on Squadron 482. Doesn't mean that has to carry over into the persistent universe. They could take the money that they make on Squadron 482 and roll it back into the persistent universe and the development of the persistent universe. And of course, if it's very successful, they'll roll some of that over into Chapter 2 as well.
We think that it's going to be great for X4, getting John on board for this. He's genuinely passionate and skilled. I just thought that was interesting, and people that have got X4, you can try that public beta now. More related to Star Citizen, though, we know that soon, probably between now and the next major patch, so 4 or by 4.1, CIG are going to roll master modes into operator modes. So we had some details on the flight model changes planned from Yogi Klatt back in September of 2024. He said the main goal around master modes was to reintroduce the relative slow flight gameplay for not just dogfighting, but for capital ship combat, large ship combat. There's actually quite an extensive list of things we want to do for the flight model, and it includes things like changing the travel dynamics, slow speed handling, trying out different acceleration models, enabling control surfaces, adding jerk, and a few other things. Most of this is...
I mean, they're getting a little personal if they're adding some jerk. You know what I'm saying? What the fuck's going on there?
Going to be coming after 4.0. In fact, I believe almost all of it. Yogi Klatt gave a rough list of some of those.
Sorry. I'm sorry, that was crude.
Things that they're wanting to be focusing on in the earlier part of 2025. Tuning wise, there are several ships and weapons in the wrong place. The maneuvering options are often too limited. Nose to nose DPS racing and backstrafing are too dominant. The mining flow has suffered. Trapping mechanics are not as fun as they should be. Nav mode feels too vulnerable. Flight feels too slow at times, although we're buzzing around at Mach 1 at times. The transition between slow and high speed doesn't feel right, and the traversal flow in general needs improvement. He went on to say lots of other bits and bobs, but I think John Crew covered a lot of it better when he talked about it at the end of November with the IAE 3 show. So John Crew talked a bit about master modes and their plans moving forward with this. He said it's an evolving development, crafting and quantum booster can have a big effect on their plans too for the customization of ships and the way that they handle the possibilities that you can have with them with dogfighting, and how good can a good dogfighter be once you fully upgrade it, that sort of stuff. So SCM and nav modes are going to be part of operator modes in the future. So they're getting rid of the more binary choice of master modes. Either you're in SCM or you're in nav mode. No, they are now going to have a more cohesive, unified speed across the modes for less restriction in mode switching, close to what SCM is now. So as I understand it, you're just going to be able to turn on your quantum drive to allow you to move at cruise speeds, move faster than your normal SCM speed, and to be able to quantum boost, quantum travel. But instead of that turning off your weapons and shields, it will just be turning off your shields. So you either have your quantum drive on or your shields on. You're not losing any sort of speed potential over the current flight model. Also, they've got this sort of quantum boost, which...
Well, they're making those changes because of how many people were bitching about it, you know? There'll be a variable speed coming up too. There'll be a lot of changes to the quantum drive itself. I think the editing is going to happen in the parts and pieces, and that'll definitely be reflected in pricing when you buy quantum drives. And I think they'll continue to work with these components. The components are going to be continually worked on because the crafting in the game is also going to be so deep. There's the crafting itself is going to be crazy deep. So you're going to see like variations of different types of quantum drives from manufacturers, maybe with different stats even. I don't know. That's way down the road. That's speculation. But I wouldn't take anything out of the ordinary here in terms of what they're going to do with these parts and pieces as they move forward a year, 2 year, 3 years from now. I mean, we could be dealing with a whole new experience easily. People just think it's like one way, set in stone. This is the way it is. It's never going to fucking change. And like, how many times has this game changed? So many times.
Which is going to have you traveling your quite big distances, but not as much as you would with quantum travel. They don't want players traveling like 30 kilometers at SCM speeds. They want you to be able to just quantum boost to your waypoint, boof, SCM speed should be relatively short range. They're sort of saying up to maybe 20 kilometers you might go SCM speed, but beyond that, yeah, you'll want to go quantum boosting, which is up to 1/10 of your quantum travel speed. It's also allowing them to go, look, we've got a bit more magic behind quantum traveling, because you can stop without inertia, you don't have the sort of G-force restrictions. It enables you to jump between waypoints, missions, and get to areas and stations much more easily without as much faff. So just like with all the changes that have been coming to Star Citizen and the flight model, all that sort of stuff, this is going to be iterated on based on player feedback when they bring it into game. They are going to want to get players actively using precision targeting, subcomponent targeting, and actually engaging in close dogfighting. This is going to potentially really improve multi-crew and large ship gameplay as well, but they need engineering for that, which I would expect to come before any of these new updates are put in. If engineering isn't in before 4.1, I would expect it to be in 4.1. So yeah, when can you expect the changes to master modes and rolling into this new style of combat and flight? Well, don't expect them all at once. Some of them are likely to turn up for or by 4.1. Again, some of them almost certainly are dependent on engineering being in game, and because they're going to want to bounce around that as well. It's going to be a big focus for CIG to get this as nailed down.
I'm sorry, I'm muted. Pepe, I swear, Pepe, I'm going to fire you. Sorry about that. I was just going off about how they need a show. I feel like Cloud Imperium needs one show every single month dedicated to the flight model. Do you guys agree with that? Put a 1 if you agree with that. Like, I think what happens is there needs to be much more transparency with the flight model. The flight model is very fucking important. You need to have people who we feel are competent enough that actually are flying around and PvPing, that push the limits on the ships and understand the limitations of each single ship and discuss the facets. You know, one of my favorite shows, Info Runners. I love Execute. He stops in here all the time. Execute is a good dude. Execute knows every single fucking detail on every single ship made in this game. You need somebody like an Execute and his community to talk with devs and be on a show every single month talking about these ships, the limitations, what people like, what people don't like, and what they want to see. And these changes need to happen quickly. The fact is, it's sloppy. The entire experience of getting these ships into a flight-ready state so that people are happy with their purchases is a grade D. I'm grading it a D. And I'm grading it a D because there's no transparency in this fucking game right now in terms of the flight model. The flight model has changed so many times. The rug has been pulled under people so many times. They need to have a monthly show where they're talking to people who know about ships, the specs, and they push these ships to the limit. And the people who are flying them, us, the gamers, are talking directly to them. And they are saying, hey, this is what we're doing this month with this ship, and this ship. We heard you. You don't like it? Here's what we're changing. They need to have debates about this shit. It needs to be on Info Runners. In fact, I wish Execute would do this with somebody from the dev team and had somebody in here once every single month, and I would watch on Info Runners where Execute and his community would literally talk with these dudes about every single ship, the limitations with them and what's going on and why are these things not getting changed? What are you guys working on? Just once every month. Once every month. That's not a big commitment. And I think it's worth it. It's the most important aspect of this game, is to make sure that your flight experience is fucking immersive, cohesive, that you've got the ship that you wanted and it flies the way that you want it to fly. It's not too much to ask for, especially even in the alpha state. Even in the alpha state. If you're paying that kind of money, the ship should always have some type of attention on it. The ship should always have some type of work on it. And there needs to be much more transparency in this area. And I could just see John Crew rolling his eyes right now, but you know it's true, John. They need more people in this. If this is their bread and butter in terms of the revenue, and it is, ship sales are like 85% of the revenue that they're bringing in. then I feel like there should be more people dedicated to making sure the flight experience is great and these ships are great, and that there is actually like some progression to ships so that so people feel more positive about it. The bar is really low, fingers. Darth Wookie says, I agree, just not the every month. Seems like every quarter. Okay, every quarter, Wookie. Maybe every month's too much, right? But maybe every quarter, right, Wookie? Like a come to Jesus meeting on master modes, right? A come to Jesus on the flight experience. Yeah, you're right. Gator says a monthly show would change too quick. You're right. I'm demanding too much. Maybe once every fucking quarter, like pillow talk. And there needs to be pillow talk back here. Pillar talk, by the way. I always call it a pillow talk. But there also needs to be that once every quarter. We got the big dogs. Here's the 2 shows I want to see added to Star Citizen. I think this would help the revenues. I think this would actually help them. I think it would be good for marketing. I think it would be good for revenues. I think they could actually boost up sales and beat last year's numbers in 2025 if they did 2 things. 1, have a show directly related to flight mechanics and ships once every quarter. So 4 times a year, have a show focused on flight mechanics, focused on people's ship purchases, what they like, what they don't like, and actually show progression in the ships that they're talking about. Preferably with people like Execute of the Info Runners community that know every fucking detail of these ships. To have the fans who know what they're talking about talk with the devs that are making these ships. And 2, I would like pillar talk back where you have the highest echelon of the administrative group, the people that are sitting at the top, like Chris and others, that could come in. Like Bessé Jour, right? Like Chris. Just, I don't give a fuck. I want the people at the top. And where's Tony Z at? Bring Tony Z in here. And I want to see a pillar talk once every quarter. So you got 4 times of a flight experience. You got 4 times of the pillar talk coming back. I think that would be good for the community. I think that would be good for revenues. I think that needs to come back. Yeah, and where's Tony Z?
As possible by the end of the year. And as part of their playability drive, they want Star Citizen to be as playable as possible, but also they want to get Squadron 42 out by 2026. They need all of this really nailed down and then refined. Boom! That's it for your Star Citizen updates and general ramble and chat about the flight model today. I'm interested to know what you think. Are you expecting this sort of stuff to all be in by the middle of the year, by sort of Q2 2025? And are there any expectations?
Yeah, you call it the flight deck. That's a great name. See, Betty, way to go, Betty. He's already on this. He's got a name for the show. Way to go, Betty. This is why Betty does all the recruiting for my org. Way to go, Betty. That's a great name for the show. Call it the flight deck. Call it the flight deck. That is a perfect name for the show, dude.
Or things that CIG you think...
And Limitless totally agree. He says, and if you're going to change it, show us how it changed for the better. Don't stealth nerf the ships near... Yes, Limitless. Holy shit, dude. Yes. I'm always... Like, Limitless and I are always agreeing. Yeah, man. Like, that would be the best show. Like, oh my God. The most views from Star Citizen videos come from Star Citizen's ships. It's a fact. Like, anytime somebody's reviewing a ship or talking about a ship or the stats or how to fit a ship or how to PvP in a ship, the most views from Star Citizen videos come from ships. Or commercials, or, they just need to actually have a show dedicated to the flight mechanics, to the ships. And like Limitless says, show us how it changed for the better after discussing it with the community. Don't stealth nerf ships near ship releases. Just stop doing that. It is a bad look. It's bad for marketing, and it makes it difficult for revenues in the future. So right. I don't think I've ever disagreed with Limitless. I think Limitless I don't think we've ever had a disagreement, Limitless. I don't think we've ever had one disagreement, dude.
Going to get right or wrong with it? Are you just looking forward to it all being sort of finalized eventually and then ironed out and iterated on? What did you think of the flight model back in 3.0 or even earlier? I think I had a load of fun with the model in 2.6.3.
That was good.
I think that potentially was the golden age for Arena Commander combat, for me anyway. I am looking forward to all of this being refined, and it will be refined.
fine. So, like, I know there's a lot of people out there. I love Backspace, a member of the community time, makes wonderful Star Citizen videos. He's very upset about master modes. It really ruined his experience when they changed the master modes. He lets us know, doesn't he, guys? He lets us know about how upset he is. And a lot of people are. I really think this idea we have would really help people like Backspace and others who have a very bad taste on the changes from master modes, which I think, frankly, they just did for Squadron 42. I literally think that the master mode changes in this kind of arcadey vibe flight experience that they did was because of Squadron 42 and getting Squadron 42 out of the door by 2026. Doesn't mean it's going to stay in the persistent universe. I think they will change the model. We can see from this video here, they're working on a couple fixes. I just think they need to focus more on a show that's dedicated to making the flight experience better for everyone. God bless you, Darth Vader. Bless you for that.
What they showed in Squadron 42, the gameplay of that and what they're trying to capture, amazing, but they didn't really show much in the way of player flight and actual player ship combat, right? It was just you shooting at ships and watching other NPCs fly around in cinematics. What do you think of what CIG have been talking about in regards to...
Thank you, wow, Stunner, thank you. 5 gifts. Wookie gave 1, Stunner gave 5. Hold on. Where's Stunner's bud? Bless you.
It's gonna be black.
Thank you, Stunner. Happy New Year to everybody, and thank you for taking the time and being here on Star Citizen After Dark, everybody. I'm having a blast with everybody. Let's see what's next.